Hello everyone! My goal with weaning my breastfeeding toddler was to do it as gently as possible and to preferably have him decide when he was done. We breastfed until he was a little over 2 years old. He weaned at 27 months to be exact, if that's helpful for anyone. And he decided when he was done, and I couldn't believe it because he was addicted to breastfeeding. I was convinced that he was going to breastfeed until he was 25 if I let him, but he chose to do it on his own with my help, and I have this book to thank for it. It is a Toddler Weaning Story. It's called Loving Comfort, and it is a book for toddlers. I will go more into the book in a bit, but I want to start out by saying from the time he was born, he breastfed on demand through the day and through the night. After doing lots of research, my husband and I decided that we wanted to breastfeed until our son was 2 years old because we thought that was the healthiest option for him. And we had a very successful breastfeeding journey. Him and I loved it, every moment of it. There was the occasional issue here and there, but other than that, it was a really successful breastfeeding journey. I loved it. So he breastfed on demand all day and all night until he was about a little over 1, and we took away his breastfeeding at night. We allowed him 1 breastfeeding session in the night, and then when we put him down for bed and in the morning. That was an easy process because anytime I couldn't get my son to fall back asleep in the night with breastfeeding, my husband would bounce him on the exercise ball and that would get him to sleep. So we just replaced any breastfeeding sessions with the exercise ball, and eventually he just started sleeping better through the night. And soon after, he got rid of the 1 breastfeeding session in the night, and he was sleeping way better through the night after that. During the day, he started eating a lot of solids, a lot more food, and so he started breastfeeding less. By the time he was 2 years old, he was breastfeeding on average of 3 times a day, once when he woke up, once at nap time, and once before bed. When he was sick, we would let him breastfeed on demand as much as he wanted, and then he did have the occasional no breastfeeding sessions in a day, 1 breastfeeding session in a day, or 2 breastfeeding sessions in a day. He didn't seem like he needed to continue breastfeeding. He seemed like it was kind of just a habit. He obviously loved it. It was his comfort from the time he was born, so his whole life. He loved it, but it just seemed like he didn't really need it as much as he used to. And I knew that he was nearing being done, but I knew that he needed my help because he was just kind of habitually breastfeeding every morning, nap, and night. So I started talking to him about weaning when he was almost 2, explaining how the process was going to end soon, and that I wanted him to be okay with it. I wanted him to decide when he was done, and he would listen. It seemed like he understood what I was saying, but it didn't seem like he was going to pull the trigger on being done breastfeeding. So I started, after he turned 2, I started looking up books for weaning because I wanted some help for moms who have gone through it, to help reassure that it would be a gentle process. I didn't want to have an end date, like, okay Ellis, it's June 1st, you're done breastfeeding, that's it. I wanted it to just be kind of organic, him decide he was done. So I was looking at books for myself to learn how to help him wean, but I didn't think of looking up books for him. I didn't know there was such a thing, but it totally makes sense because from the time he was a baby, we've explained everything to him. Even if he didn't understand us, we've always explained everything to him, and it seems to help him understand a lot now. And so it made sense to include him in learning about weaning and getting a book for him because he's, the one letting go of his lifetime of breastfeeding. So I was just like, that's it, I need this book for him. And I didn't think it would work as well as it did, but it did. He was done breastfeeding within 2 days of getting this book and reading it. The first time we read the book, my husband read it to my son and myself, and I was very emotional and teary during it. And after we were done reading the book, my son came over to me, climbed up on my lap, gazed into my eyes, just smiled and gave me the biggest hug. It seemed like he understood that breastfeeding was going to be done soon, and it seemed like he understood how special it was that we breastfed for as long as we did, which was all that I could have asked for. And a little about the book: it is called A Toddler Weaning Story, Loving Comfort. It is written by Julie Dillemuth and illustrated by Vicki Pratt. It says on the back here, "Mama's milk has always been a part of Jack's life. That's changing now that he's a toddler, and that's hard, but Mama's cuddling arms, lullaby voice, and thump-thump heartbeat won't change even when the milk is gone." And then we have a little quote by Jessica Barton. "Loving Comfort is about the life of a nursing relationship for a mother and her son, with beautiful illustration and wisdom from a mother who has been there. Loving Comfort is as much for mothers as it is for children who are learning about weaning." And honestly, I love this book. I recommend it to everyone. And it talks about how the baby breastfed, and then as he got older, he started eating more foods and he didn't need to breastfeed as much. I changed the child's name in the book to Ellis, and he was really into it. He thought it was so special that it was Mommy and Ellis. And then it refers to breastfeeding as nursing, and they say mama's milk. We never really called it nursing or mama's milk. We just always said breastfeeding. So I would change it to breastfeeding for most of the parts. So for example, it says, "As Jack got older, he could feed himself and he didn't need so much of mama's milk." And I would change it to, "As Ellis got older and could feed himself, he didn't need to breastfeed as much." We read the book the first day, and then the next day he skipped his morning breastfeeding session. He only wanted to breastfeed for his nap. And then at bedtime, I said, "Do you want to breastfeed or do you want to bounce on the ball?" And he said, "Bounce on the ball with mama." So normally dad bounces him on the ball, but he chose for me to bounce him on the ball. So it seemed like he still wanted the bonding, like he got that it was a bonding thing we were giving up. So that was special that he chose me to bounce him. Then the second day after reading the book, it was the same thing. He gave up breastfeeding in the morning and at night, but wanted me to bounce him at night, and he breastfed for his nap. And on the third day we got to nap, I said, "Do you want to breastfeed or do you want to bounce on the ball?" And he said, "Bounce on the ball." And I couldn't believe it. I didn't know if it was a one-day thing, like if he's gonna change his mind tomorrow, which I was fine with. But that was his last time breastfeeding. He never went back. About a week and a half to 2 weeks later, I was putting him down for his nap and he said, "Breastfeed?" And I was like panicking inside, like, oh no, I don't want to like start over 2 weeks later. And so I was like, "Oh, you want to read your breastfeeding book?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Perfect, okay, good." So I read him the book while I bounced him on the ball, and he fell asleep and he was happy. He has brought up breastfeeding maybe twice since then, and it was in a joking way. I would be bouncing him on the ball and he'd say, "Breastfeeding?" Like, yeah, right, I don't breastfeed anymore. Like, he thought it was hilarious. And at first we didn't really talk about breastfeeding other than reading the story. We would read it every night for the first 2 or 3 weeks that he weaned. And anytime he would ask to read it during the day, sometimes he really loved it, and it really helped him get through the process. But now we're free to talk about it. I'm not afraid of it triggering the desire to breastfeed. We talk about how he used to breastfeed and how it was so special and we loved it, and that he is a big boy now. One of the things I liked about the book was it didn't do any shaming, like, "Oh, you're a big boy, so you don't breastfeed anymore. Like, if you want to breastfeed, then, you know, you're a baby." It didn't like do any shaming or anything. It was just perfect. It was so perfect. I highly recommend the book. As for me during the weaning process, I was very emotional, mixed feelings, so happy that it was going better than I had hoped, but so emotional. It was really triggering my hormones, like out of my control. I was so emotional, but it was good. My breasts, they didn't have any issues with drying up. For the first 2 weeks, they felt really itchy, and I would just kind of rub them, and that was it. I didn't do anything special for them. Maybe I should have, I don't know. But I didn't have any issues with any clogged milk ducts or them hurting. It was just they were itchy for a couple weeks, and now I'm good. Now our son is good. And I couldn't be happier with how weaning went, and I was terrified to do it. So I hope this is helpful for anyone who is currently trying to wean their toddler or going to be weaning their toddler soon. If there's anything you can think of that I missed that would help you, feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Good luck on your journey. I wish you the best. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you next time. Bye.